Waterbury, Connecticut. January 3, 2013, 6:15 a.m. Federal agents stand outside a building at 22 Golden Hill Street. The building is a two-story wood frame structure painted white. It contains 2 apartments. Drug Enforcement Administration agents and Connecticut State Police officers have a search warrant. The temperature is 23 degrees. The sun has not yet risen. At 6:20 a.m., agents knock on the door. A man answers. His name is Kevin Wallin. He is 61 years old. He wears a bathrobe and slippers. Wallin is 5 feet 10 inches tall, approximately 200 pounds, with grey hair. He does not resist. Agents place him in handcuffs and escort him to a vehicle. Inside the apartment, agents find methamphetamine. They find digital scales. They find plastic bags used for packaging drugs. They find $3,000 in cash. The apartment is cluttered. Clothes are piled on furniture. Empty food containers sit on counters. The refrigerator contains beer and leftover takeout. A crucifix hangs on the bedroom wall. Kevin Wallin is a suspended Roman Catholic priest. For 9 years until June 2011, he served as pastor of St. Augustine Parish in Bridgeport, Connecticut. St. Augustine is the mother church of the Diocese of Bridgeport. The church seats 800 people. Wallin held the title of Monsignor, an honorary designation for priests of distinguished service. He advised 2 Bridgeport bishops. He was considered a rising star in the diocese. Between late 2008 and January 2013, Wallin ran a methamphetamine distribution operation across state lines. He received shipments from California suppliers. He sold the drug to dealers and individual customers throughout Connecticut. He generated approximately $300,000 in drug proceeds between August 2012 and January 2013 alone. For a period, he received between 1 and 3 pounds of methamphetamine per month. Bridgeport, Connecticut. June 2011. Morning. Kevin Wallin submits his resignation to the Diocese of Bridgeport. He cites health reasons. He is 59 years old. He has served as pastor of St. Augustine Parish since 2002. Before that, he held various positions within the diocese over a career spanning decades. Parishioners describe him as compassionate, dedicated, and accessible. He counseled married couples. He visited the sick. He presided over baptisms, weddings, and funerals. The diocese accepts his resignation. Wallin moves out of the rectory at St. Augustine. He relocates to Waterbury, approximately 20 miles northwest of Bridgeport. He rents 2 apartments at 22 Golden Hill Street. He lives in one. He allows a friend to occupy the other. The friend's name is Dylan DeVries, known to acquaintances as Lime. DeVries is 37 years old. He works at an adult entertainment store. Wallin does not disclose the real reason for his resignation. Church officials discover that he has been cross-dressing. He wears women's clothing in private. He frequents nightclubs dressed in drag. He uses the name Miss Vicky. The diocese prohibits him from performing public ministry. He is suspended from priestly duties. He retains his status as a priest but cannot celebrate Mass, hear confessions, or perform sacraments. Wallin develops a methamphetamine addiction. The addiction begins sometime between 2008 and 2009. The exact date is not recorded in official documents. He uses the drug regularly. The drug affects his behavior. He becomes erratic. He loses weight. Parishioners notice changes but do not know the cause. San Clemente, California, late 2008. A man named Chad McCluskey manufactures and distributes methamphetamine. McCluskey is in his late 30s. He operates from Southern California. He supplies the drug to customers across multiple states. He uses the U.S. Postal Service and private shipping companies to send packages. The packages are concealed to avoid detection. McCluskey has a girlfriend named Kristen Lashkober. Lashkober is in her 30s. She assists McCluskey in the drug operation. She helps package shipments. She communicates with customers. She manages logistics. Through circumstances not detailed in court records, McCluskey establishes contact with Kevin Wallin. The 2 men reach an agreement. McCluskey will supply Wallin with methamphetamine. Wallin will distribute the drug in Connecticut. Some shipments are sent on consignment. Wallin pays McCluskey and Lashoba with proceeds from sales. The arrangement continues for approximately 4 years. McCluskey and Lashoba send shipments to Wallin's address in Waterbury. The packages arrive by mail. Wallin receives them. He divides the methamphetamine into smaller quantities. He sells to other dealers. He also sells directly to individual users. The operation is systematic. McCluskey maintains production in California. Lashoba handles shipping. Wallin manages distribution and sales in Connecticut. Money flows back to California through various methods. The system operates efficiently until law enforcement begins surveillance. The Connecticut State Police statewide narcotics task force receives information about methamphetamine distribution in the Waterbury area. The Drug Enforcement Administration joins the investigation. Agents identify Kevin Wallin as a target. They learn he is a former priest. They learn he is receiving shipments from California. Agents obtain authorization for wiretaps. They monitor Wallin's telephone communications. They conduct physical surveillance. They observe Wallin meeting with individuals at various locations. On September 14, 2012, an undercover officer makes contact with Wallin. The officer poses as a buyer. Wallin agrees to sell methamphetamine. The officer purchases drugs from Wallin on 6 separate occasions between September 2012 and January 2013. Each transaction is recorded. On the first purchase, the officer buys approximately 1/8 of an ounce for $575. On subsequent purchases, quantities increase. On January 2, 2013, the officer purchases approximately 3/4 of an ounce for $2,850. Agents document each transaction. They photograph Wallin. They record conversations. They note times, dates, and locations. The evidence accumulates. North Haven, Connecticut. Kevin Wallin purchases an adult video and sex toy store. The store is called Land of Oz and Dorothy's Place. It is located in North Haven, approximately 10 miles south of Waterbury. The store sells pornographic DVDs and sex toys. It occupies a small commercial space in a strip mall. Wallin pays $4,000 as a down payment. He plans to use the business to launder drug proceeds. He intends to disguise illegal income as legitimate business revenue. He begins making payments on the purchase. The store continues to operate under his ownership. Federal prosecutors later identify the store purchase as part of a money laundering scheme. Wallin never completes the full purchase. He is arrested before the transaction is finalized. Kevin Wallin sits in the back of a federal vehicle. He has been read his rights. He does not speak. Agents transport him to the federal courthouse in Hartford. The drive takes approximately 40 minutes. Snow falls lightly. Roads are clear. At the courthouse, Wallin appears before a magistrate judge. He is charged with conspiracy to distribute 500 grams or more of methamphetamine. Federal prosecutors present evidence. They describe the investigation. They outline the scope of the operation. They request that Wallin be held without bail. The judge orders Wallin detained. He is transferred to the Bridgeport Correctional Center. He will remain in custody pending trial. Hartford, Connecticut. January 17, 2013, Federal Courthouse. A federal grand jury returns a 6-count indictment against Kevin Wallin. The charges include conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute 500 grams or more of a substance containing methamphetamine and conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute 50 grams or more of actual methamphetamine. Each count carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in federal prison. The maximum sentence is life imprisonment. U.S. Attorney David Fine releases a statement. He describes the investigation as a joint effort between the Drug Enforcement Administration and the Connecticut State Police. He states that the operation spanned the country from California to Connecticut. He notes that methamphetamine is highly addictive and destructive. The indictment names 4 co-defendants. Chad McCluskey is charged. Kristen Lashoba is charged. 2 other individuals connected to the distribution network are charged. All 5 defendants face federal prosecution. News of the arrest spreads rapidly. Local media report that a former priest has been charged with drug trafficking. The story makes headlines across Connecticut. Television stations broadcast footage of Wallin being led into the courthouse. Photographs show him in handcuffs wearing civilian clothing. The Diocese of Bridgeport issues a statement. Bishop William Lawry, who has since been transferred to another diocese, expresses shock and concern. The current diocesan administrator, Monsignor Robert Weiss, states that the allegations are serious and disturbing. He says the diocese is cooperating with law enforcement. He reminds the public that Wallin was suspended from ministry in 2011. St. Augustine Parish, Bridgeport, January 20, 2013, Sunday morning. Parishioners attend Mass. The church is half full. Father Dennis Vincenzo, the current pastor, addresses the congregation. He asks them to pray for Kevin Wallin. He reminds them that everyone deserves compassion. He acknowledges the pain and confusion caused by the news. Some parishioners are devastated. They remember Wallin as caring and attentive. They recall his homilies. They remember his presence at baptisms and weddings. They cannot reconcile those memories with the charges. Others are angry. They feel betrayed. They question how a priest could engage in criminal activity. They wonder whether the diocese knew about Wallin's problems. They demand answers. Mary Ellen Santos, a longtime parishioner, speaks to reporters outside the church. She says Wallin was a good priest who did many good things. She says something clearly went wrong. She says she will pray for him. Another parishioner, who asks not to be named, expresses outrage. He says Wallin was supposed to be a moral leader. He says the priest failed his responsibilities. He says the diocese should have acted sooner. Kevin Wallin sits in a cell. He is housed in the facility's federal holding section. He wears an orange jumpsuit. He is allowed minimal contact with other inmates. He has access to legal counsel. He speaks with his attorney, Willie Dow III. Dow is an experienced defense attorney. He reviews the evidence against Wallin. The evidence is substantial. There are recorded drug transactions. There are wiretapped phone calls. There is physical evidence from the apartment. There are statements from co-defendants who may cooperate with prosecutors. Dow explains Wallin's options. He can proceed to trial. He can negotiate a plea agreement. A trial is risky. The evidence is strong. A conviction at trial would likely result in a lengthy sentence. A plea agreement might result in a reduced sentence. Wallin faces the reality of his situation. He is addicted to methamphetamine. He has destroyed his career. He has betrayed his parishioners. He has committed federal crimes. He has no viable defense. San Clemente, California, February 2013. Chad McCluskey and Kristen Lashoba are arrested. Federal agents execute search warrants at their residence. Agents find methamphetamine. They find manufacturing equipment. They find records of shipments. They find financial records. McCluskey and Lashkoba are charged with conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. They are held in federal custody. They face the same charges as Wallin. They face mandatory minimum sentences. Both defendants hire attorneys. Both attorneys advise cooperation with prosecutors. Cooperation might result in reduced sentences. The attorneys negotiate with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Kevin Wallin appears before Senior U.S. District Judge Alfred Vive Cavello. Wallin is escorted into the courtroom by U.S. Marshals. He wears a dark suit. His hair is neatly combed. He looks thin. He walks slowly to the defense table. Judge Cavello asks Wallin how he pleads. Wallin's attorney, Willie Dow III, stands. He informs the court that his client wishes to change his plea to guilty. Wallin pleads guilty to one count of conspiracy to distribute 500 grams or more of a mixture and substance containing methamphetamine. The judge asks Wallin a series of questions. He asks if Wallin understands the charges. Wallin says yes. He asks if anyone has coerced or threatened him. Wallin says no. He asks if Wallin is pleading guilty because he is guilty. Wallin says yes. Assistant U.S. Attorney Patrick Caruso outlines the facts of the case. He states that between late 2008 and January 2013, Wallin conspired with Chad McCluskey and Kristen Lascoba to distribute methamphetamine. He states that Wallin received shipments from California. He states that Wallin sold the drug to dealers and customers. He states that on 6 occasions between September 2012 and January 2013, Wallin sold methamphetamine to an undercover officer. Caruso states that in August 2012 alone, Wallin sold 4.4 pounds of methamphetamine, generating approximately $300,000. He states that Wallin purchased an adult video store to launder drug money. He states that a search of Wallin's residence on January 3, 2013, revealed methamphetamine, scales, and packaging materials. Judge Covello accepts the guilty plea. He schedules sentencing for a later date. He orders Wallin to remain in custody. Wallin is led out of the courtroom. Outside the courthouse, U.S. Attorney David Fine speaks to reporters. He says the guilty plea holds Wallin accountable. He says methamphetamine is a scourge. He says law enforcement will continue to combat drug trafficking. Chad McCluskey and Kristen Leshober plead guilty to conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. Both plead guilty in federal court. Both admit to supplying methamphetamine to Kevin Wallin. Both admit to shipping drugs across state lines. Both agree to cooperate with prosecutors. Their cooperation includes providing detailed information about the operation. They describe how shipments were packaged. They describe how payments were made. They describe the quantities of drugs involved. They provide documentation. 2 other co-defendants also plead guilty. All 5 defendants in the case have now admitted guilt. All await sentencing. Kevin Wallin's attorney files documents with the court. The documents request leniency at sentencing. Willie Dow III argues that Wallin's addiction drove his criminal behavior. He argues that Wallin has expressed genuine remorse. He argues that Wallin has cooperated with the government. The defense submits letters from supporters. More than a dozen people write on Wallin's behalf. Some are former parishioners. Some are friends. Some are family members. One letter is from a woman Wallin counseled during a difficult period in her life. She writes that Wallin was kind and non-judgmental. She writes that he helped save her marriage. She writes that despite his crimes, she believes he is fundamentally a good person who made terrible mistakes. Another letter is from a man Wallin baptized as an infant and later prepared for confirmation. He writes that Wallin was a father figure. He writes that the news of Wallin's arrest devastated him. He writes that he still believes in forgiveness. The prosecution files its own sentencing memorandum. Assistant U.S. Attorneys Patrick Caruso and H. Gordon Hall argue that Wallin's crimes were serious. They argue that he distributed large quantities of a dangerous drug. They argue that his position as a priest makes his conduct more egregious, not less. They note that Wallin has been detained since January 3, 2013. They note that he has served 28 months in custody. They recommend a sentence within the federal guidelines. Hartford, Connecticut, May 7, 2015. Federal Courthouse. Morning. Kevin Wallin enters the courtroom at 9:30 a.m. He is 63 years old. He has been incarcerated for 28 months. He wears a dark suit provided by his attorney. His face is gaunt. His hair is white. He walks with assistance from a U.S. Marshal. He takes his seat at the defense table next to Willie Dow III. The courtroom is half full. Some former parishioners attend, some reporters attend. Wallin's family members sit in the front row. They do not speak. They look straight ahead. Senior U.S. District Judge Alfred Vukoff Covello enters at 10 a.m. Everyone stands. The judge takes his seat. He reviews documents on his desk. He looks at Wallin. Assistant U.S. Attorney Patrick Caruso addresses the court. He reiterates the facts of the case. He states that Wallin received shipments of methamphetamine over a 4-year period. He states that Wallin distributed drugs to dealers and users. He states that Wallin generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in proceeds. He states that methamphetamine destroys lives and communities. Caruso acknowledges that Wallin pleaded guilty. He acknowledges that Wallin cooperated to some extent. He recommends a sentence of 65 months in federal prison followed by 5 years of supervised release. This is the low end of the sentencing guidelines. Willie Dow III addresses the court. He argues for a more lenient sentence. He describes Wallin's addiction. He states that Wallin became addicted to methamphetamine in 2008 or 2009. He states that the addiction consumed Wallin's life. He states that Wallin's criminal behavior was driven by addiction, not greed. Dow presents Wallin's history. He states that Wallen served the Catholic Church for decades. He states that Wallen helped countless people. He states that Wallen was a dedicated priest who counseled the troubled, comforted the grieving, and served his community. He states that Wallen's fall was tragic. Doe asks the court to consider Wallen's remorse. He states that Wallen is deeply ashamed. He states that Wallen has lost everything. He states that Wallen's career is destroyed. He states that Wallen's reputation is ruined. He asks for mercy. Judge Covello asks Wallen if he wishes to speak. Wallen stands. He holds a piece of paper. His hands shake. He reads from the paper. Wallen apologizes to the court. He apologizes to the Diocese of Bridgeport. He apologizes to the parishioners of St. Augustine Parish. He apologizes to everyone he hurt. He says he failed in his responsibilities. He says he let people down. He says he is deeply sorry. Wallen's voice breaks. He pauses. He takes a breath. He continues. He says he became addicted to methamphetamine. He says the addiction took control of his life. He says he made terrible decisions. He says he has no excuse. Wallen says he has used his time in prison to reflect. He says he has participated in substance abuse programs. He says he attends Narcotics Anonymous meetings in the facility. He says he wants to rebuild his life. He says he wants to help others avoid his mistakes. Wallen sits down. The courtroom is silent. Judge Covello speaks. He says this is an unhappy day. He says he has read the letters submitted on Wallen's behalf. He says it is clear that Wallen did good work as a priest. He says it is also clear that Wallen committed serious crimes. The judge says methamphetamine is a dangerous drug. He says it destroys individuals and families. He says the court must send a message that drug trafficking will not be tolerated. He says the court must balance mercy with justice. Judge Covello sentences Kevin Wallen to 65 months in federal prison. He orders 5 years of supervised release following incarceration. He orders Wallen to participate in substance abuse treatment. He orders Wallen to pay a fine of $10,000. Wallen closes his eyes. He nods slowly. He does not react otherwise. U.S. Marshals approach. They place him in handcuffs. They escort him out of the courtroom. His family members watch. Some cry quietly. Outside the courthouse, U.S. Attorney Deirdre M. Daly speaks to reporters. She says the sentence holds Wallen accountable. She says methamphetamine has ravaged other parts of the country. She says federal and state law enforcement will continue to combat meth's distribution in Connecticut. Michael J. Ferguson, special agent in charge of the Drug Enforcement Administration for New England, also speaks. He says the DEA and law enforcement partners are committed to investigating individuals who distribute methamphetamine. He says methamphetamine wreaks havoc in communities and destroys lives. Chad McCluskey is sentenced in federal court. Judge Covello sentences him to 65 months in prison. McCluskey receives the same sentence as Wallen. The judge notes that McCluskey was a supplier. He notes that McCluskey facilitated the operation by sending drugs across state lines. Kristen Lashkober is sentenced to 60 months in prison. The judge notes that she played a supporting role. He notes that she assisted McCluskey but was not the primary organizer. Both McCluskey and Lashkober are ordered to serve 5 years of supervised release following their sentences. Both are ordered to participate in substance abuse treatment. The other 2 co-defendants in the case receive lesser sentences. Their roles were smaller. One received drugs from Wallen and distributed them. The other provided assistance with logistics. Both served time in federal prison. Danbury, Connecticut, 2015 to 2017. Kevin Wallen serves his sentence at the Federal Correctional Institution in Danbury. The facility houses approximately 1,000 inmates. It is a low-security prison. Wallen is assigned to a dormitory-style unit. He shares living space with other inmates. Wallen participates in the prison's drug treatment program. He attends group therapy sessions. He attends individual counseling. He participates in Narcotics Anonymous meetings. He speaks about his addiction. He listens to others. Inmates and staff describe Wallen as quiet and compliant. He does not cause problems. He follows rules. He works in the prison library. He assists other inmates with legal research and letter writing. Wallin maintains minimal contact with people outside the prison. He speaks with his attorney occasionally. He receives letters from a few former parishioners. He does not respond to media requests. The Diocese of Bridgeport takes no further action against Wallin. He remains suspended from public ministry. He cannot perform priestly duties. The process for laicization, which would remove him from the priesthood entirely, is not initiated during his incarceration. Kevin Wallin is released from federal prison on May 15, 2017. He has served approximately 4 years and 4 months. With credit for time served while awaiting trial and sentencing, he has completed his 65-month sentence. Wallin enters a halfway house in Waterbury. He is required to live there as a condition of his supervised release. He is required to find employment. He is required to participate in substance abuse treatment. He is required to submit to drug testing. He is required to meet regularly with a probation officer. Wallin finds work at a warehouse. He performs manual labor. He stocks shelves. He loads trucks. He earns minimum wage. He lives in the halfway house for 6 months. In November 2017, he is permitted to move to his own apartment. Wallin rents a small 1-bedroom apartment in Waterbury. He lives alone. He continues working at the warehouse. He continues attending substance abuse meetings. He reports to his probation officer as required. Kevin Wallin's probation officer requires him to submit to random drug testing. The testing is a standard condition of supervised release. Wallin is tested multiple times. In March 2018, a test comes back positive for amphetamines. In April 2018, another test comes back positive. In May 2018, a third test comes back positive. The probation officer notifies the U.S. Attorney's Office. The probation officer files a violation report with the court. The report states that Wallin has violated the terms of his supervised release by using illegal drugs. The report recommends revocation of supervised release. Federal prosecutors file a petition with the court. They request that Wallin's supervised release be revoked. They request that he be returned to federal prison. They argue that Wallin has not learned from his previous incarceration. They argue that he continues to struggle with addiction. They argue that he poses a risk to the community. Wallin is arrested on May 24, 2018. U.S. Marshals take him into custody at his apartment. He does not resist. He is transported to the federal courthouse in Hartford. He appears before Judge Covello. Wallin admits the violation. His attorney Willie Dow III argues that Wallin relapsed. He argues that addiction is a disease. He argues that Wallin needs treatment, not incarceration. He asks the court for mercy. Judge Covello reviews the file. He notes that Wallin has violated the terms of his supervised release multiple times. He notes that Wallin tested positive for drugs on 3 separate occasions. He notes that Wallin was given an opportunity to rebuild his life and failed. The judge addresses Wallin directly. He says he is disappointed. He says the court gave Wallin a chance. He says Wallin has thrown that chance away. He says addiction is not an excuse for violating court orders. Hartford, Connecticut, August 30, 2018. Federal Courthouse. Judge Covello sentences Kevin Wallin to 9 months in federal prison for violating the terms of his supervised release. The judge states that Wallin has demonstrated an inability to comply with court orders. The judge states that incarceration is necessary to protect the public and to deter future violations. Wallin does not speak. He accepts the sentence. U.S. Marshals place him in handcuffs. They escort him from the courtroom. He is returned to federal custody. Outside the courthouse, reporters ask about the case. U.S. Attorney John Durham's office releases a brief statement. The statement says Kevin Wallin violated the terms of his supervised release by using illegal drugs. The statement says he was sentenced to 9 additional months in federal prison. The statement is 2 paragraphs. There is no press conference. The case no longer generates significant media attention. The story of the priest who ran a methamphetamine ring has faded from headlines. The Diocese of Bridgeport issues no statement about Wallin's re-incarceration. Diocesan officials decline to comment when contacted by reporters. A spokesman says the matter is a legal issue, not a church matter. He says Wallin remains suspended from public ministry. He says the diocese has no further information. St. Augustine Parish has a new pastor. The church community has moved forward. Parishioners rarely mention Kevin Wallin. His name is not spoken from the pulpit. His photograph has been removed from the church's hallways. The parish focuses on current activities and ministries. Some former parishioners still remember Wallin. Mary Ellen Santos, now 78 years old, says she prays for him. She says she believes in redemption. She says she hopes he finds peace. She says addiction is a terrible thing. Others have no sympathy. One former parishioner, speaking anonymously, says Wallin had every opportunity. He says Wallin wasted those opportunities. He says Wallin made his choices. He says Wallin made his choices. He says Wallin deserves no pity. Kevin Wallin serves his 9-month sentence. He is 66 years old. He is housed in the same facility where he served his previous sentence. He is assigned to the same dormitory unit. He works in the same library. Inmates who remember him from his previous incarceration are unsurprised by his return. They know addiction. They know relapse. They know the cycle. Some offer support. Others ignore him. Wallin participates in the drug treatment program again. He attends the same group therapy sessions. He sits in the same chairs. He hears the same lessons. He makes the same commitments. Staff members note that Wallin appears more resigned this time. He seems to have accepted his situation. He does not express hope for the future. He completes his days quietly. Kevin Wallin is released from federal prison. He has completed his 9-month sentence. He enters a halfway house again. He follows the same rules. He meets with a probation officer. He submits to drug testing. He finds work at a different warehouse. Wallin lives quietly. He does not seek attention. He does not contact former parishioners. He does not grant interviews. He completes his supervised release requirements. He attends Narcotics Anonymous meetings. He reports as required. In 2020, Wallin completes his supervised release. He is no longer under federal supervision. He is no longer required to report to a probation officer. He is no longer subject to mandatory drug testing. He remains a private citizen living in Waterbury. The Diocese of Bridgeport maintains that Wallin is suspended from public ministry. He cannot celebrate Mass. He cannot hear confessions. He cannot perform marriages or baptisms. He is not permitted to wear clerical clothing or identify himself as a priest in any official capacity. Wallin does not challenge the suspension. He does not seek reinstatement. He does not request laicization. He lives as a former priest who destroyed his vocation through addiction and crime. Epilogue. Between late 2008 and January 2013, Kevin Wallin received and distributed pounds of methamphetamine across Connecticut. He generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in drug proceeds. He purchased an adult video store to launder money. He sold drugs to an undercover officer 6 times. He was arrested on January 3, 2013. He pleaded guilty on April 2, 2013. He was sentenced to 65 months in federal prison on May 7, 2015. He violated his supervised release in 2018. He served an additional 9 months. He completed his sentence in 2019. Chad McCluskey served 65 months in federal prison. Kristen Lashkoba served 60 months. Both completed their sentences. The other co-defendants served lesser terms. The methamphetamine distribution operation was dismantled. The drugs stopped flowing from California to Connecticut through Kevin Wallin. The investigation closed. The case became a file in federal archives. Kevin Wallin lives in Connecticut. He is 73 years old. He works at a warehouse. He attends Narcotics Anonymous meetings. He is not a priest. He is a man who once was.